You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly made an announcement on Friday. It is the Kelly family $1 million match. Effectively, Brian Kelly and his wife, Pocky, have committed to matching up to $1 million in donations to the LSU collective. Now, to be very clear, a coach cannot contribute to NIL. So Brian Kelly can't give money to the collective. He can't give money directly to players. That is not allowed under NCAA rules. He can, however, contribute to the Tiger Athletic Foundation. Those funds can then be appropriated. I'll get more into that in just a second. But the genesis of this goes back just about 10 days, or 9 days. Last Wednesday was the early signing period, and during that press conference after the early signing period, Brian Kelly was asked how NIL fundraising is going. And I'll play this answer for you for those that missed it, but it runs a little more than a minute because he went into a pretty big detail about the necessity of NIL fundraising. He really challenged LSU fans. This was Brian Kelly 9 days ago.
It started as, and I don't think LSU's different. I think LSU probably was similar to most, not all, but most. I don't want to give to NIL. I don't want to pay players. I don't want my money to go to a player. I want it to go to something different. So I think early on it was education. Right? It was educating the donors about what the landscape was of college football and making them understand what a collective was and making them understand what recruiting is, like I've just laid out to you, that we're going to recruit, we're going to put in the time, we're going to get the right young men that want to graduate, that want to play for championships, but we also have to be able to provide them with the NIL resources through our collective so they actually come here because other schools are going to do the same. So if you want to be in the big poker game, this is what the ante is. I think we've gotten through to that. Now, we still have donors that say, I'm not giving to that. I get it. But we are still in the big poker game. And so we still have to be able to go out and say, we need support so we can continue to build our roster. Because you can't do it playing 5 freshmen and 2 sophomores like we did on Saturday night. You have to be able to play mature players as well. And that's the mix.
So when Brian Kelly was asked about pivoting, and it was sort of a semantic argument, it's clear that's what they've done. You can't play, 5 freshmen and a sophomore, which they did on defense in that final game against Oklahoma. You can't do that consistently and win at the highest level. So the idea of building through the high school ranks and supplementing in the portal, you need to find a balance. I'm not saying you need to go the other way and sign 30 guys out of the portal and you're turning over your roster every year. You have to find the balance, and that's where he is right now. But in order to do that, you have to have the funds in NIL to bring in those players during this time. And I'll give a hat tip to Brian Kelly because he found a creative way to put his money where his mouth is to encourage donors. And when you face pushback, a good way, anybody that's ever been in any type of management or leadership position, I don't even mean just in a business, think about it in your household, with your children, whatever. You want to know a good way to encourage others to act? Lead by example. So no one can turn and look at you and say, what are you doing? Or what am I doing? I'm putting up $1 million of my own money. So hat tip to Brian Kelly for that. By the way, he does have a history. He and his family have a history of generosity. Back in 2010, they gave $250,000 to Notre Dame for cancer research, the library, other things like that. In 2016, he gave $100,000 to build a Ronald McDonald House. In 2020, just 2 years ago here, he gave $1 million for the athletic training facility, which is they've opened now on the back of football operations. He gave it was one of the things that was his baby, his brainchild when he took this job, and he gave $1 million toward that. And now for the second time, he's made a 7-figure donation. It's the largest donation from a sitting coach in LSU history. He's done it twice. So you can't, listen, you can say whatever you want. You don't have to be thrilled about the way the season ended, and I don't blame you. That 8-4 didn't meet anybody's expectations, the least of which is Brian Kelly's. But nobody can argue, hey, man, he's not committed. Hell yeah, he is. And he's showing you in every way you can show it. So Brian Kelly asked donors on signing day effectively to step up. Now he's done the same thing. So the why and how, remember, as I started, coaches can't give to NIL. So he can't write a check to the collective or to players or anything like that. So this $1 million, and as I understand it, they've already had strong interest from high-level donors about matching Brian Kelly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find out in short order that they're going to sail past $1 million with Brian Kelly's match and go into multiple millions, which would be incredible if it happens that way. So we'll see. We'll follow this coming days and weeks to see what the response is. But Brian Kelly's given $1 million or pledged to match $1 million to the Tiger Athletic Foundation. Now remember, TAF is a 501c3, so a nice end-of-year write-off for Brian Kelly as well. But TAF can then appropriate those funds for anything within the athletic department, if it's facilities or coaches' salaries or whatever it may be, or rev share. So again, creative way maybe to appropriate those funds how you need to. But the other thing is Bayou Traditions, the healthier it is. Let me not say that. The more money Bayou Traditions has in the bank, liquid cash right now, they can turn around and spend right now to front load contracts. I shared with you Garrett Nussmeier, right? You don't have to take my word for it. Matt Rule told y'all would start. Matt Rule told you last year, all of us. Matt Rule told us all last year. You want a quarterback in the portal? It's going to cost you between $1 and $2 million. Suffice to say, Garrett Nussmeier's deal to stay at LSU is at the high end of that range. Okay. All right. Well, how do you do that? Do you call it $2 million out of your revenue share? Well, here's a good way to do it. You front load it with NIL dollars now, so you don't have to take it out of the revenue share pot later, that you can then share during the fall and in the season with everybody else. Well, you got to have the funds right now. You have to have the funds in the coffers. So you get that money now. It lets you front load these deals to make you, to benefit you come fall semester, come fall. So yes, a push now before revenue share goes into effect is pretty important, especially now when you're trying to sign all these transfers. But y'all, LSU, the collective is as healthy as it has been. I mean, literally since it started. Today was better than yesterday. Yesterday was better than the day before, and it's going to continue to get better, certainly than it was when NIL started back in July of 2021. And y'all don't need the history lesson on it, but LSU struggled early in the NIL space. That's no secret. But they've gotten organized, and they're pushing. It took them a while, but they're organized, they're pushing in the right direction, and something like this helps. And I know, listen, what LSU has done to drive Bayou Traditions forward. When I say LSU, I'm just talking big picture, right? I'm not specifically LSU. I'm talking about the collective and those of everyone involved. They've been able to engage the $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 donor. And that has allowed them to catapult forward. Initially, it was about 20 people that were funding the entire collective. They've now grown that base, which has been very important. I know a lot of people say, why don't they crowdfund? You know, why aren't you engaging the everyday fan? There's 100,000 people in Tiger Stadium. What if everybody gave $20 a month? Yeah, that would be great. That's also not realistic. Like, people don't like that their subscription service fees keep going up. You think they're going to give $20 a month and set that on auto pay $100,000? It's not realistic. The schools that have done crowdfunding the best are Ole Miss and Auburn. And they're in the 5,000 to 10,000 donors every month, giving in that $10, $20, $50 range. I mean, even if you had 10,000 people giving $20 a month, that's $200,000. That's not even counting what it takes to raise that money. What does it cost to execute that program? It's a lot of work for a little payoff. What you have to do is be able to sit down at a lunch and get from one lunch and convince a donor to write you a $50,000 check or a $100,000 check. Like, that's what they desperately need to do. That's what they've done much better. And something like this from Brian Kelly speaks to all those people to say, okay, I get it. And it's a really smart thing that he's doing. And there is nobody, I'll reiterate today, or right now, what I said at the beginning, there's nobody that can question Brian Kelly's commitment to LSU and to winning. He came here for one reason. There's one thing. There's one box in this man's career he has not checked. One. It's to win a national championship. Is he winning his active coach in college football? He's been to a BCS championship. He's been to the college football playoff. He's won conference titles. He's been everywhere. He's won everywhere he's been. He's had big wins. He's had disappointing losses. He made a buttload of money. There's one thing he hasn't done. One box he hasn't checked. He hasn't won the last game and held the trophy that everybody wants to hold. It's why he's here, and he is pot committed to doing it, even financially, as you see. So what the reaction to this will be, I think is going to be fascinating, but my guess is it's going to be overwhelmingly positive. You're already seeing it right now because everyone's looking around, and maybe that Bryce Underwood thing was the catalyst to make everybody around here look and go, man, bleep this. Like, I know we ain't the richest, but we ain't the poorest either. And we're not going to put all these resources in and just take it lying down. I think that's engaged a lot of people. And I'm going to tell you long term, I'll say it again, as much as we all would have loved to see Bryce Underwood here, that's going to be a long-term benefit. Because now, if you did, in a different era, obviously you'd hate it. But in the NIL era, what I mean, not the absence of Bryce Underwood, I mean being able to reallocate those funds instead of sinking those funds into an 18-year-old who had never taken a snap and wasn't going to contribute for you next year. Taking those funds and allocating them into the portal is going to make you immediately better, much better in 2025 than you would have been with Bryce Underwood. And I think that's going to be the catalyst that also pushes this thing forward. The Kelly Family $1 Million Match Challenge. Links are everywhere if you want to donate. Go get involved. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.